Welcome back to Star Trek Revisited, where I rewatch and re-evaluate every episode of Star Trek, the original series, with the benefit of hindsight, context, and occasionally a bit of grumbling. Today, I'm revisiting Errand of Mercy, an episode that is sometimes awkward, occasionally slow, but ultimately delivers a strong message that still lands 6 decades later. Without any further ado, let's get into it. The episode opens in a slightly unusual way with a close-up of Lieutenant Brent at a bridge station, followed shortly by Eddie Paskey, clearly seen at the engineering console as Mr. Leslie. And interestingly, though, this time there is no sign of Billy Blackburn as Lieutenant Hadley. From the outset, though, the mood is obviously tense in this episode. The crew are awaiting a coded Starfleet directive, and both Kirk and Spock independently deduce what is going to be, and that is that negotiations with the Klingon Empire are on the verge of collapse. And that makes this episode instantly significant, because this is the very first mention of Klingons in Star Trek. The stakes are clearly laid out. The Federation and the Klingon Empire are both trying to lay claim to the same region of space. And there is only one viable Class M planet, isn't there always, in this disputed area. And that is a planet called Organia. Whoever controls this gains a strategic foothold in the area. Before the situation can even properly settle, the Enterprise is suddenly attacked. Now, the remastered effects here are, for me, a bit of a mixed bag. The Enterprise itself looks excellent, dynamic, detailed, and properly under fire. But the remastered long-distance shot of the Klingon D7 attacking the Enterprise is oddly disappointing to me. It replaces the original version, which didn't show the ship at all, but it still feels distant and underwhelming to me. More noticeably, the Klingon ship is apparently destroyed way too easily for my liking, which feels strange in retrospect, especially given what we later come to understand about Klingon durability and firepower. Moments later, Uhura receives a transmission from Starfleet. Code 1, war is declared. It's a sobering moment, delivered without melodrama, but it lands hard. And I do like the camera work on the bridge in the early part of this episode. There are some strong angles and compositions that add to the tension. So Kirk and Spock decide that they have no choice but to beam down to Organia and attempt diplomacy, or at least damage control. Sulu is left in command of the Enterprise, which to me immediately raises the question: where is Scotty? Was he having the day off in this episode? Was he on leave? Or was he just too busy in engineering to take command for whatever reason? It's a minor point. But as Kirk and Spock prepare to leave, Sulu receives orders from Kirk that are blunt and very, very clear. If attacked, protect the Enterprise, withdraw, and warn the fleet. It's also worth noting that at this point, Dr. McCoy does not appear at all in this episode. And this gives the story to me a colder and more strategic tone than usual. It's badly missing his emotion and his usual excellent contributions. And then we get to Organia and the Organians themselves. So on the surface, Organia presents itself as ancient, static, and painfully primitive from the Federation's point of view. Kirk and Spock are greeted by Aelborn, who does this very nice little hand greeting, which I quite like. And Aelborn is instantly, to me, likable. He radiates calm, gentleness, and complete detachment. The buildings are simple. The society appears stagnant. And there's an overwhelming sense that nothing here has changed in a very long time. I'll admit up front, I've never been especially fond of episodes that take us away from technologically advanced worlds, shall we say, but as this one does. It often feels like Star Trek artificially limiting itself when it's at its most interesting, to me anyway, when it's among the stars and planets that are depicted as more advanced civilizations on a level pegging towards Starfleet and the Federation, shall we say. As Kirk urgently tries to explain the danger to the Organians, which is the impending Klingon invasion. The Organians politely decline any assistance. They simply don't seem to care. Spock, meanwhile, notices something deeply illogical about the situation. This society is not progressing. It isn't seemingly evolving, and it's as though time itself has stalled and something is clearly off. Now, before they can make any headway, the situation starts to escalate as a fleet of 8 Klingon ships arrive in orbit and immediately attack the Enterprise. With the Enterprise hopelessly outnumbered, Sulu is forced to abandon orbit, leaving Kirk and Spock down there on the planet alone, exactly as he was ordered to do. So this I like. This is good command decisions from Sulu, doing the right thing and getting out of the area. Nothing else he could do here. What's curious and unsettling here, though, is that the Organians already knew how the Klingons had arrived. Kirk and Spock are confused at this too, and rightly so. And then we finally meet some actual Klingons. Now, there's no way around this. The Klingons, as depicted here, have not aged well, shall we say. The dark face paint, the stylized facial hair, the Fu Manchu mustaches that are on some of them. This is not the Klingon culture that would later be defined in Star Trek: The Next Generation. Honor, ritual, and complex philosophy are largely absent from these Klingons that we meet for the first time. These early Klingons feel more like generic space tyrants, I would think, is the best way I can describe it, and more so than the richly textured civilization that would later be defined in Star Trek lore that we would come to love. That being said, however, John Colicos is absolutely superb as Kur, which I always thought should be pronounced as Kor, because it's only one O. One O is Or. 2 O's would be Ur, but I digress. He dominates every scene he's in, though. He's charismatic, he's theatrical, and he's clearly enjoying himself playing this part. Colicos would later reprise the role in Deep Space Nine on a number of occasions where the character and the actor are given far more room to breathe within that fully realized Klingon culture. Interestingly, as many of you I'm sure will know, Colicos is also very well known for playing Baltar in the original version of Battlestar Galactica, where, to me, he was equally captivating, performing opposite the amazing Lorne Greene of Bonanza fame as well. Well worth checking out. I love both versions of Battlestar Galactica, in case you're wondering if I have a preference, but that's a whole nother show. Maybe we'll do a channel on that one day. Anyway, one of my favorite moments in this episode is when Kur realizes exactly who Kirk is. The sheer delight on his face. Captain of the USS Enterprise, a starship commander, and his first officer. He's almost childlike glee at the opportunity to meet a worthy adversary. It's so wonderful to watch. It really, really is. Once the Klingons occupy Organia, the pace of the episode, to me anyway, and you may disagree with this, but to me it noticeably slows. And this is where my engagement starts to dip a little bit. The story begins cycling through some familiar beats. Kur imposing authority, Kirk and Spock quietly sabotaging Klingon operations, the Organians reacting with polite indifference, which is weird, right? It plays almost like a World War II resistance movie, with Kirk and Spock as the French resistance and the Klingons as the occupying forces. What's jarring is how often the Klingons reference their mind scanner or mind sifter or mind ripper, as it was called, all three during the course of this episode, depending on the scene. And once again, this reinforces how far removed these Klingons are from the ones we'll come to respect later and occasionally fear. But there you go. But what also strains credibility a little bit for me is how little suspicion is raised by the Organians' behavior, their repeated nonchalance to the situation, and their uncanny ability to rescue Kirk and Spock at crucial moments, especially from Spock's perspective. I really think he should have deduced by now that these people are not quite what they seem, are far more than they actually appear. So what is the real message of this episode? Ultimately, it's not about the Klingons at all. It's the real heart of the episode to me is revealed near the end of the episode when the Organians are exposed as highly advanced non-corporeal beings, entities who long ago transcended the need for physical existence or physical content, and then suddenly everything changes. Viewed from their perspective, the Organians' point of view, the maneuvering, the spying, the sabotage, the plotting of both the Federation and Klingon Empire is revealed as ridiculous, petty, and deeply unevolved. The Organians do not choose sides. They don't negotiate. They don't buy into what's going on at all. They simply, with their powers, neutralize the conflict entirely, and immediately 2 massive fleets poised for battle above Organia are rendered harmless in an instant. And I find that moment deeply satisfying, actually. It's a powerful statement on the futility of war and a much needed slap of humility to both superpowers. There's a wonderful irony at the end of this episode where Kirk and Kur both react with indignation to the Organians' suggestion that the Federation and Klingons will one day become allies, indeed become fast friends in the exact words of Aelborn. They can't imagine it, and yet we, the audience who have watched all of Star Trek, we know better. We know that this future will come to pass, and that, although imperfectly and with some difficulty, it will come to pass. Flawed, but genuine. When the Organians reveal their true forms, it's a clear lesson that both sides still have a long way to go. Spock understands this immediately, and back aboard the Enterprise, Kirk finally does too, openly admitting his embarrassment at how unevolved humanity truly is when compared to beings who've had millions of years to grow beyond conflict. Spock gently reminds him, though, as the voice of reason, the voice of logic, and perhaps also reminds us as the audience that humanity is still a work in progress. And so that's the end of the episode, and as it closes, we have a new director name, John Newland, who only directed this single episode of Star Trek. The music was composed and conducted, as is quite often the case, by Alexander Courage. In fact, I don't think that we've had a non-Alexander Courage episode for quite some time. But as ever, the score adds gravitas to this episode. The music of Star Trek, the original series, is instantly recognizable and could not be anything else. And it adds that gravitas, even when the pacing falters at times. The music is so important to Star Trek. I may do a video only on Star Trek composers at some point in the future. Errand of Mercy is not a perfect episode, but it's an important one. And it leaves us with a question Star Trek keeps asking us even now, even today. How far do we still have to go before we truly deserve the future we are trying to build? It's an interesting question for sure. And 60 years on almost from when this episode was made, we are seeing very real conflicts in the world today. I won't get into the can of worms of talking about that, but it's a powerful reminder. But anyway, let's leave it there and start wrapping things up. As ever, I'm going to go through some of the guest stars and statistics for this episode, so let's take a look. We've got our usual cast here, including Shatner, Nimoy, etc., but we've also got guest stars in this episode, most notably John Abbott as Aelborn and John Colicos as Kur. We have various other guest actors here playing lieutenants and Klingon guards and Organian villagers. We have Frank Da Vinci, uncredited, as Brent. We have Eddie Paskey, uncredited, as Mr. Leslie. No Billy Blackburn, this time as Lieutenant Hadley. So there we go. Now, the final thing to do here is to give this episode a score. IMDb gives this an 8.1. Back when I first saw this episode as a probably in my early teens, I'm going to guess, is when I first saw this one. But I used to like it a lot more than I do now. As I said, I don't like the pacing of this one sometimes, and I never gravitate to episodes that are on planets that are not parallel to where Starfleet and Federation culture and civilization is. This is a good example of that. Although it's fake, it's not real, it's an illusion. But episodes like A Private Little War and Bread and Circuses and Series 2, we're basically going back in time without going back in time. And to be fair, and we'll get to some of these, A Private Little War is a episode that I enjoy a lot more now than I did when I was younger, because I see the message of it, the story it was trying to tell. But as a whole, I like episodes that are in space with starships, with encounters with alien civilizations who don't always look human. And if they do look human, they're at a level of equal pegging to the Federation. They have technology, they know about other planets and warp drive and all that stuff. So, but yeah, something about this one has not aged well for me in many, many ways. The Klingons, a notable part of that. I mean, the Klingons, wow, there's a video in and of itself, have changed appearance so many times over the years. And we'll not go down that rabbit hole either. But there you go. We'll leave it there. Thank you for watching. Thank you so much for your support for the channel. I do appreciate it. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. Please do hit the subscribe button as well, as all of those things help me to grow more than you would think. Until next time on Star Trek Revisited, take care, stay safe, and do travel well. Bye-bye.